สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Let me ask you this. Where or who do you think is the best place or best person to go to when you just need that emotional support? Perhaps you're faced with a difficult, challenging, or tough life situation, life circumstance, and you just need that emotional support. What can you do? Where should you go? Who should you turn to? And the answer is none other than you yourself. Because at the end of the day, only you can be the source of your own empowerment. Only you can take back control and take back power over your life. Only you can free yourself from your suffering. Only you can create your own happiness. The choice always lies within your hands at any given moment of time. And understandably, it may be a very difficult choice. But still, the person who has the power to choose is always you. You see? Of course, this is not to deny or to water down or to push away or to reject the value of going to a friend or a family member or a trusted, dear, loved one for emotional support. Those things are very important and have their place and have their purpose. As a matter of fact, they can be very, very important and very, very valuable. Similarly, this is not to deny or reject or push away the value of taking good care of yourself, taking yourself to a treat on a nice meal, taking yourself out to exercise, bringing yourself to your favorite place, or bringing yourself to do that activity or hobby that you like to do in order to take your mind off the stress or feeling of overwhelmment. But the point is simply this. You do not want to do those things as a means to avoid what you're truly feeling. Your emotions, in other words. You don't want to rely on some external crutch with a sense of powerlessness. You don't want to go to a friend feeling powerless. You don't want to go to your favorite place or meal feeling powerless, right? Those things would only truly have value if they are able to provide you with some breathing space, so to say, and that they provide you as a mirror to reflect what is the lesson here, how you can grow from the situation, and what you can learn from it, and what can you do to take back control and take back power. They would only truly serve purpose if they help to reflect to you the beliefs that you have, the thinking styles, the thought patterns, the thought habits, the attitudes that you have that may contribute to greater or lesser extent to the emotions and feelings of difficulty that you're going through. You see what I mean? So you don't want to rely on external conditions. You don't want to rely on external circumstances as a crutch. You don't want to make them conditions that you always have to depend on in order to feel good. You see what I mean? This is a very important point to make. You want to realize that at the end of the day, you can always choose how you want to look at something, how you want to respond, how to make the most out of a difficult situation, even if that means that the best you can do is just accept and embrace the outcome. Because we don't have control over what happens outside of us in life, but we do have control over what happens within. And in order to train yourself to really take back that control, take back that power, take back that empowerment, and to learn to thrive in life means to develop the emotional skill sets that are necessary to enable you to be able to do so. Because like I've said in many of my videos and many of my clips, if you think about it, we never really fear any situation. We never really fear any circumstance. We don't fear losing our job. We don't fear going broke and having no finances and having to live on the streets. We don't fear losing a loved one. We don't fear getting diagnosed with a serious health condition such as cancer. We don't fear getting a heartbreak. We don't fear anything really. But we only ever fear our own emotions that we think and predict that we would create around any given situation. So the key, again, as I've said in many of my videos, it always points back to self-awareness. It's an emotional skill set to be able to sit with and mindfully confront and accept and embrace the emotions for the experience that they are. To accept and embrace your emotions as they happen. To see them for the emotions and the thoughts that they are without necessarily having to drown in them, which means without having to identify with them. Realizing that thoughts are not facts, thoughts are not reality, thoughts are just thoughts. You don't have to believe your thoughts, right? And therefore, you don't have to feel overpowered by your emotions. Once you're able to train yourself to sit with, to cope, to tolerate with these feelings and emotions, you will gradually learn to take back power and take back control over your life, because you are essentially teaching yourself and training yourself that emotions and thoughts do not have the power to control you or harm you until you believe that it does. And that insight is very empowering. Once you gain this insight, will you be able to remain centered and grounded and stable despite an overwhelming life situation, despite a difficult situation. You see that? And only then can you begin to develop perspective on the situation by asking yourself questions that get you to correctly assess and understand that actually, if you think about it, if you reflect on it, if you contemplate on it, you will begin to realize that your experiences are always happening within. You create your own experiences through the way in which you think about something, your attitudes, your belief systems, right? That cause you to generate thoughts, and you believe those thoughts, and they become an emotion. You see what I mean? And once you see those connections, you will begin to ask empowering questions that help you to take back control of the situation. What does an empowering question entail? An empowering question is one that gets you to ask, for example, wait a minute, what am I doing to cause myself to feel these emotions? Because it gets you to then observe and look at yourself and your situation and your emotions non-judgmentally. Look at them objectively. And look at them with a sense of curiosity. And you'll realize that, oh, wait a minute, maybe the fact that I feel so overwhelmed about this situation reflects some limiting belief that I have about it. And again, I've talked about this in many of my previous videos, so be sure to check that out to see in more detail the links between our beliefs, our attitudes, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and our behaviors, right? And only then would it be would it be of much more value to then go to a friend or a dear one or a loved one or a family member for emotional support, because then you will be able to go to them and use that support system as a mirror to self-reflect, to really contemplate on your beliefs, on your attitudes, and your thinking, right? Because you begin to realize that life isn't about what happens to you, because you don't have control over that. But life is about how you choose to respond. The choice that you have in how you choose to respond, how you choose to perceive it, think about it, see it, and believe about it. You always have a choice in how you respond to a situation. And you realize that it's more important to focus on doing the best with what you've got. This is not to say that outcome is not important, but that what's more important is to focus on the variables that you truly have control over. And you begin to develop deeper self-insights. You begin to develop psychological self-understanding. And this is where true empowerment really begins to grow for you. And when you're no longer reacting, but you're responding skillfully to a challenging situation, then you will begin to train yourself that these types of situations, you can always handle them. You can always manage them. you can always persevere, you can always overcome them. And you begin to understand that things which you cannot change, you will also have the wisdom and perspective to accept and embrace. And you feel powerful, you feel in control, you feel empowered, right? This is the opposite of going to rely on those outside external crutches and conditions, such as going to a friend, going to do your activity, in order to escape how you're feeling. And the important point to note here is that each time you escape or avoid or try to run away from your feelings and from your emotions, you are unwittingly training yourself to believe that you are more and more and more powerless in relation to these types of situations. In other words, you're teaching yourself to fear these situations. You're teaching yourself to fear your emotions even more. So there is always a very heavy price, a very high cost to pay when you avoid and run away from your emotions. Which is why the best place to go to, the best person to go to for emotional support is within yourself. But you must go with a mindset of learning, of growing. What is the lesson here, right? Teaching yourself that no matter what happens, you can still always cope and tolerate these emotions. You're still safe in the very moment right now, in the present moment. You're still safe. There's no threat except for perceived threat, which lies in your thinking styles, perceptions, attitudes, and belief systems. And you begin to see that, wait a minute, many of your beliefs, maybe you took on from somebody else. Maybe you took on those limiting beliefs from social conditioning that you now use to judge and punish yourself and add to this feeling of overwhelmment and stress. You see? And only then can you begin to question the validity of these beliefs. And when you begin to change and challenge them, you begin to take back more control. And one more point I want to add is we often make the common mistake, which is completely understandable why we do so. But we often make the common mistake when faced with overwhelming emotions. We make the common mistake of immediately running to a friend or to a family member or to somebody else in the hopes that they will make us feel better. You see the problem with this premise? This premise or this way of thinking already is rather disempowering in itself if you think about it, because you are now saying that you need to be rescued. So you're now saying that somebody else has the responsibility to make you feel better. You see that? You're saying that you don't have the capability to go through or to work through these difficult emotions on your own. Again, I'm not saying that to reject support from others. They are very important. But you do not want to go to them or rely on them from a place of avoidance or powerlessness. You see that? And oftentimes when we go to other people for emotional support, we end up unwittingly training ourselves to reinforce the limiting beliefs that cause us to feel powerless in the first place. How does this happen? Because oftentimes our friends, because they love us and care for us, our family members, our loved ones, because they care for us, they want to express their empathy and sympathy, which is important, but they may be colluding with our sense of helplessness, right? Because they may not be in a position to, or they may not know how to challenge the way we look at something in order to help us to gain perspective. And therefore, they are indirectly and unintentionally colluding with the sense or beliefs of powerlessness and helplessness, because they're not challenging the way we're looking at the situation. Perhaps you're blaming something else. Perhaps you're going to a friend because you had a rocky relationship with a family member, and they're not challenging you when you blame your family members for your suffering, when you blame your ex-partner for the relationship breakup and for the heartbreak, when you blame your boss for the situation at work, when you blame your colleague for the situation at work. You see what I mean? Sometimes the people who we go to for emotional support are not in a position to help act as a helpful mirror because they want to show empathy and they want to sympathize, or maybe simply because they don't know what to say or what to do, and that's understandable. So again, to sum it up real quick, only you have the power to free yourself from your suffering. Only you have the power to truly take back control, take back power, and empower yourself. Therefore, the best person to go to rely on emotional support is none other than you yourself. Look for the silver lining. Ask yourself, what can you learn from the situation? Ask yourself, how can you become more skillful, more strong, have more inner strength as a result of this life experience? Ask yourself, what is this life experience trying to teach you? You see that? Ask yourself, what do these emotions and feelings reflect within you? Ask yourself whether or not you are running away or avoiding something which you need to learn and accept and embrace sooner or later. See that? And I understand this may be a difficult choice, but again, as I've said, that choice always lies within your hands. Because it takes real honesty, it takes courage to really sit there and learn to be with your emotions and learn to self-reflect and be honest with yourself and about the way you feel. But I guarantee you, although this may be difficult at first, but it is always worth it. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And as I've said, if you continue to avoid or run away from it, they come back to haunt you later. There's interest rate that you need to pay, and the interest rates are very high. There's always a high cost to pay for running away from your emotions. So I hope this was a bit inspiring for you, and I hope it encourages you to realize that the answer is always within you, and you are way more powerful, way more capable than you may previously realize. You can always develop these emotional skill sets. You can always look for the silver lining. You can always look for the lesson to be learned. And if you develop this attitude, this perspective, you will go so far in any domain of life. And why not learn together and grow together? So I invite you to join me as we all continue this lifelong journey of self-development and actualization. Okay, I hope this was valuable. Do share with me in the comments what you think about the video. If you found it helpful and valuable, please do give it a like, share the video, and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification button. I will see you next time. สวัสดีครับ